I do want to also get to some conversations surrounding this deadly plane crash in Louisville. The NTSB stating today that they do know that 12 people have died, but 9 people are still missing. We're to jump into a press conference that was held just a little while ago. This was happening while we were talking about a couple other things live on the air. So we put a little bit of a tape delay on this, but this is new information coming in the past hour.
Authorities to make sure that if there's any identification of a survivor or recovery of remains, anything like that, that is the first thing that takes priority. And so I think it's important that we understand that. I also want to point out the coordination that we've had with the Louisville and the state EMA directors. Their work has been extraordinary, especially as we continue on into day 3 of this investigation. The Louisville EMA director has been a great asset to us and to everyone, and is diligently working to make sure we can bring closure to as many people as possible. It's been a very active response. Today is our first day fully of being able to investigate. So I'd like to also tell you a little bit about what we call the party process. This has been in place with the NTSB for approximately 30 years, and we offer this party status to those companies, government officials, agencies, and associations that have employees or activities that were involved in the accident and crash, and that they can bring technical expertise to help us understand it. In our organizational meeting, which occurred last night, we wrapped up at about 9:30 last night. In fact, the teams actually continued to meet after that for several hours. We named the following parties to this investigation: the Federal Aviation Authority, United Parcel Service, the Independent Pilots Association, sometimes referred to as IPA, the Teamsters Union, which represents the mechanics for UPS, Boeing Corporation, which is the now manufacturer of the aircraft after a consolidation with McDonnell Douglas, and GE Aircraft Engines. Now, the NTSB has put together a multidisciplinary team, and I mentioned yesterday the different groups that we put together. And so we have actually brought in additional specialists. Right now, the NTSB team is over 30 individuals. We've brought in additional vehicle performance specialists and a materials engineer. And of course, they are being supported by dozens of individuals in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere in the country. We have no issue bringing any resource that we need to make sure we have the right people in place while we are on the ground here. Now, we have received preliminary flight data information. This would be commonly referred to as ADSB. These data points that were provided by the FAA showed the aircraft for the last reporting time was at 475 feet of altitude, traveling at a speed of 183 knots. This data point was collected at 5:13 and 32 seconds Eastern Standard Time on the night of the accident. This information will be coupled with the flight data recorder information and other information that we receive that will help us prepare a timeline of exactly what occurred and in what progression, what was known in either the cockpit or on the ground, and it is another important part of the information. Yesterday, we also did what was called a FOD walk. This is a foreign object debris. This FOD walk occurred on runway 17 left, or L, and 17 right, or R. During the FOD walk on 17R, we found multiple pieces of engine fan blades, along with the main component of the engine of the number 1 engine, which is on the left side of the aircraft. We have transferred all of those to a secured location for further examination, and we'll be using that to further analyze any mechanical aspects. And I mentioned yesterday we had recovered the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, often referred to as the FDR and the CVR. Last night, one of our recorder specialists flew overnight with that recorder, immediately went to the NTSB headquarters where we have a recorder's laboratory, and extracted the data from both the FDR and the CVR. We consider this a good extraction with good data points, which means that we will have even more information to help paint a comprehensive picture. So with that, I'd like to introduce Shahoon, who can give you a few specific pieces of information regarding the flight data recorder.
Both recorders were recovered and disassembled at the NTSB Recorders Lab in Washington, D.C. The FDR, or the Flight Data Recorder, download was successful. It had about 63 hours of data over 24 flights, which included the accident flight. This FDR recorded about 420 parameters. Those parameters included altitude, airspeed, engine information, as well as system statuses for the onboard systems installed. The NTSB will form an FDR group at Washington, D.C. at our headquarters in the coming day. The CVR, or the Cockpit Voice Recorder, was also successfully downloaded. That contained about 2 hours of audio, which included the accident flight. The CVR group will convene at the NTSB in the coming day to do a transcription of the recorded audio for the accident flight.
Thank you. And let me reiterate again, the NTSB does not release the audio of any cockpit voice recording. A transcript ultimately will be made available of the pertinent information regarding the actual flight itself. As Shahun said, this will take a few days to not only get the information, but to make sure it's validated and verified by the experts and the parties. So we will not be having any information on that for at least another day or two. So with that, we'll try to take a few of your questions. Again, I would ask that you raise your hand, tell me your name and the agency you represent. Joe.
This plane was on the ground for over a month in San Antonio.
And you represent?
The Courier.
Sir.
This plane was on the ground for over a month in San Antonio. Was it there for repairs? You know, major repairs were done. Was a C check or a D check done? And were the engines removed and pylons removed?
So the question for those who may be watching is, we understand that the plane was in San Antonio, Texas for approximately 6 weeks, and what type of maintenance or what type of work was done on that. We are aware that this aircraft was there in San Antonio. We have actually started to pull those records down. We have a specific group that has experts in not only maintenance but repair, job cards, and all of the requirements of that. We're currently downloading that information and going back, and we will actually, as part of the investigative process, we will go back even further from that to get additional pertinent details about certain inspections and checks based on the age of the aircraft, and we will move forward and we will look at every piece of maintenance that was done, even from the San Antonio time all the way to the date of the flight. So those are pertinent and important information. We're aware of it, but it's going to be a laborious process to go through everything, especially whenever you're talking about 6 weeks of being there. We're also pulling CCTV information from the field to be able to understand anything that was being done around the aircraft in the days leading up to it. Yes, ma'am.
Valerie Chen with WDRB News. There were reports that the plane was delayed that day as the engine was being worked on. Can you confirm that, and what details do you have?
So the question was, there's reports regarding delays in regard to the engine before the flight. We've queried, and UPS has told us at this time there were no maintenance work done on the aircraft in question immediately prior to the flight that would delay it in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, one of our jobs is to make sure we verify anything that we may learn through multiple sources, but nothing to this point has been presented to us to dispute that. So our belief is today that there was not a maintenance issue regarding that aircraft prior to the flight subject. Tom?
Mr. Edmond, there was some reporting to suggest that the crew of that plane they were supposed to be on a different plane, and that plane was swapped out for a maintenance issue. In other words, they were on the second plane to take to Honolulu. The previous plane that they have been assigned to may have been swapped out because of its own maintenance issue. Are you aware of that? And also, can you speak to, if there is a broader concern about the MD-11, what steps will you take to ensure that that word is spread out and maybe there's a fleet-wide inspection?
You know, each time you ask a question, Tom, you ask two. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. The question was in regard to the incident aircraft, and that there's been some reporting or discussion of whether or not it had been swapped out by that crew to take a different plane to on its Honolulu flight. Right now, we've not gotten any specific information on it. The good news is UPS, their flight scheduling and all of their crews are being very cooperative with us, providing everything we need. So we will go back and look at that history, because whenever a crew is assigned, obviously sometimes that's a last-minute change, but with cargo operations, it doesn't happen very quickly if you have to move a lot of cargo and other things. So the good news is, again, we've got CCTV footage. We can be able to identify and validate that very quickly, but it is one part of the pre-flight information that will be part of our report. The second question was in regard to the MD-11s. And I can say this, every aircraft, based on its age, the number of hours and cycles, has to go through a series of checks that have been tested and verified over many years of this plane flying. We are going back and looking to confirm every one of those checks were conducted and to verify. And sometimes in accidents like this, we may make recommendations for a different check or a different type of work to be done.
All right, so that gives you an idea of what still lies ahead for the NTSB. And if you weren't watching some of those graphics at the bottom of your screen, we were also giving you some updates, the newest information in terms of how many people have died, how many people are injured. At this point, 12 deaths, 9 missing. That number is down from 15, a number initially reported by the mayor. And we do know that there are 2 people currently in critical condition at the University of Louisville Hospital, not far from where that plane exploded. Speaking of the mayor, I mentioned Mayor Craig Greenberg had put out some of those details earlier. He put this out a short time ago saying, please join me for a vigil tonight honoring the lives lost in Tuesday's tragic incident. We'll gather at 5 p.m. at the local 89 Union Hall on Taylor Boulevard. I encourage everyone in our community to come together during this difficult time to support one another and honor those we've lost. And obviously, this has been a very difficult situation. We know that at one point in time we were talking about, hey, there's 3 crew members on board. This wasn't a passenger flight. Maybe that meant we would see fewer deaths. But then obviously, we would later learn just how large that debris trail was, all of that fuel that burned on the ground, leading to even more deaths than we may have initially thought. So